Dr. Amanda Foster's fingers hovered over her keyboard as she stared at the anomaly on her screen. The quantum pattern analysis shouldn't look like this, couldn't look like this. She'd been running deep space signal monitoring for DARPA for the past 5 years, and she'd never seen anything so perfectly ordered. "Hey, Jenkins," she called out to her research assistant without taking her eyes off the screen. "Come look at this pattern sequence." The young physicist shuffled over, his coffee mug perpetually glued to his hand. "What's up, Doc?" He grinned, using his favorite greeting despite her repeated eye rolls. "These signals, they're too perfect." She pointed to the rhythmic waves pulsing across her monitor. Natural phenomena always have some degree of quantum uncertainty, some chaos in the system. But these, she pulled up a comparison chart. "Look at the precision. It's like they're engineered." Jenkins leaned closer, coffee forgotten. "Could be a hardware glitch." "Already ran diagnostics 3 times. Amanda pushed her chair back, stretching her neck. The late-night fluorescent lights of the Colorado facility cast harsh shadows across her workspace. "I'm sending this up the chain. Something's not right." Within 30 minutes, every major quantum computing facility worldwide started flagging similar anomalies. The pattern was spreading, becoming impossible to ignore. By dawn, Amanda found herself in a secure video conference with military leaders from 12 nations, explaining what she'd discovered. "The signals are approaching from the Kuiper Belt," she explained, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Based on their progression and intensity, we're looking at something massive, possibly a fleet of ships. But here's the interesting part." She pulled up her analysis. "Their entire communication system appears to be based on perfect quantum algorithms. No randomness, no chaos theory integration. It's like they've completely eliminated uncertainty from their technology." "And that's bad?" General Richards asked, his weathered face filling one of the video squares. "It's fascinating," Amanda corrected, "and potentially a massive vulnerability. Their systems are so perfect, so predictable, that they might be completely unprepared for the inherent chaos of human behavior and technology." Across the world, AI systems began processing the approaching signatures. The Nalaxian Empire's preliminary scans categorized Earth as a Class 3 civilization, barely spacefaring, still dependent on fossil fuels, politically fragmented. Their artificial intelligence calculated a 99.9% probability of successful conquest within 60 Earth days. They didn't account for Amanda Foster's discovery. As the first alien transmission reached Earth's communication systems, a demand for immediate surrender, Amanda was already working with a hastily assembled team of quantum physicists, chaos theorists, and computer scientists. The message itself revealed more about their potential invaders than they'd intended. "Look at this," she pointed out to Jenkins, who hadn't left her side despite being awake for 36 hours straight. "Their language processing is entirely algorithmic. No room for interpretation, no understanding of context or nuance. They're so advanced they've become limited." The Nalaxian Fleet Commander, High Executor Zixis, observed Earth's major population centers through quantum-enhanced scanners. His species had conquered 12 galaxies using the same perfect, predictable strategy. Their technology had evolved beyond the need for emotional decision-making or creative problem-solving. Everything was calculated, precise, and guaranteed. As Amanda Foster stared at her quantum analysis screens, a slow smile spread across her face. The aliens' fatal error wasn't underestimating Earth's technology. It was underestimating the power of human unpredictability. In trying to achieve perfection, they'd engineered out the very qualities that might help them understand their opponents. "Jenkins," she said, turning to her exhausted assistant, "get me everything you can on chaos theory and quantum uncertainty. I think I know how we can win this." The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. And our greatest weakness, our chaotic, unpredictable nature, would prove to be our greatest strength. The Rocky Mountain Complex's elevator descended for what felt like an eternity. Dr. Amanda Foster clutched her tablet, watching the floor numbers tick past -20, -21, -22. Few knew this section of the facility existed, buried deep beneath NORAD's public levels. Level Omega, announced a synthetic voice as the doors opened to controlled chaos. The bunker's main chamber hummed with activity. Screens covered every wall, displaying everything from global defense positions to social media feeds. But what caught Amanda's attention was the unlikely group gathered around the central holographic display. Dr. Foster, General Richards waved her over. Meet your new team. A teenage girl with electric blue hair barely glanced up from her laptop. Max Rodriguez, she introduced herself, fingers never stopping their dance across the keyboard. I crashed the NSA's firmware last year. They offered me a job instead of jail. Beside her sat an elderly man in a tweed jacket, studying a virtual chessboard. Grandmaster William Cooper, he said, eyes fixed on his game. They tell me you need someone who understands strategic chaos. And I'm Captain Sarah Martinez, added a Marine Corps officer, her sleeve bearing the insignia of the Military Chaos Theory Division. I specialize in unpredictable warfare tactics. Amanda blinked. This is our response team. The most unpredictable minds we could find, Richards confirmed. While the world above thinks we're preparing a conventional military response, you'll be developing Project Chaos. Max spun her laptop around. Check this out. I've been analyzing their transmission patterns. These aliens, they're basically running on really advanced Excel spreadsheets. Everything's quantified, categorized, predicted, which makes them vulnerable, Cooper interjected, finally looking up from his chess game. In chess, grandmasters can predict dozens of moves ahead, unless their opponent does something completely irrational. One truly unexpected move can shatter a perfect strategy. Captain Martinez nodded. It's like fighting a super-advanced computer. They've optimized everything, but they can't handle variables they haven't categorized. Amanda's mind raced with possibilities. So we give them something they can't categorize. But how do we keep this quiet? The moment they detect a coordinated response. We don't coordinate, Max interrupted, grinning. We create controlled chaos. Look at this. She pulled up a social media feed. I've already started seeding random behavior patterns through my network. Flash mobs, viral challenges, completely unpredictable human activities. And the Nalaxian scans. Amanda asked. Show exactly what we want them to see, Richards explained. On the surface, Earth's nations appear to be falling into predictable patterns of panic and military posturing. Meanwhile, Cooper moved a chess piece seemingly at random, causing his eye opponent to crash. We prepare the unexpected. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. While the world above received censored news about diplomatic preparations, Amanda's team worked on weaponizing unpredictability itself. Max coordinated with her hacker network, introducing subtle chaos into global communications. Cooper analyzed historical battles where inferior forces had achieved victory through irrational strategies. Martins designed military responses that defied all conventional logic. Look at this, Amanda called out, drawing her team to her quantum display. Their ships maintain perfect formation even when moving. No variations, no adjustments for solar winds or gravitational fluctuations. They're completely dependent on their predictive algorithms. Their greatest strength, Martinez observed, and their greatest weakness, Cooper finished. Max looked up from her laptop, her eyes bright with possibility. Dr. Foster, what if we didn't just introduce random elements? What if we gave them so many different patterns that their systems overload trying to predict them all? Amanda smiled, remembering her quantum uncertainty principles. Like a massive wave function collapse. The pieces were falling into place. Above ground, Earth's governments maintained radio silence, letting the Nalaxians think their lack of response indicated submission. But here in the depths of the Rocky Mountains, humanity's most unpredictable minds were preparing a defense that no perfectly logical system could anticipate. They expect surrender, Amanda said, looking at her unlikely team. Let's show them why they should have expected chaos instead. The first shot in humanity's counteroffensive wasn't fired from a gun. It came from a teenager's laptop in the depths of the Rocky Mountain complex. Deploying Operation Rickroll, Max announced, her fingers flying across the keyboard. On the main screen, thousands of dots lit up across a global map, each representing a compromised Nalaxian scanning probe. Dr. Foster watched in amazement as the alien devices, designed to analyze Earth's military capabilities, instead began downloading centuries of human memes, viral videos, and intentionally nonsensical content. Their AI is trying to find patterns, Max explained, struggling to contain her glee. But how do you categorize a cat playing piano or a banana phone song? Every time they almost establish a pattern recognition protocol, we hit them with something completely different. Captain Martinez leaned forward, studying the reaction patterns. Look at those response times. They're getting slower. Their systems are actually struggling to process this. Better than that, Cooper interjected, pointing to a cluster of red dots near the moon. Those probes have completely frozen. They're caught in a logic loop trying to understand why humans would intentionally create and share content with no practical purpose. Amanda's quantum readings confirmed it. The perfect, predictable patterns of Nalaxian technology were showing signs of strain. Their first victory hadn't come from advanced weapons or military might, but from the collective chaos of human creativity. The alien response was immediate and predictable. High Executor Zixis deployed their first wave of combat drones, expecting to easily overwhelm Earth's primitive defenses. Instead, they encountered something their tactical computers couldn't process: a planet-wide network of gamers treating their invasion like the ultimate multiplayer event. They're using standardized attack patterns, Max explained to her global network of players. Just like NPCs in a game, once you learn their patterns, you can exploit their programming. Finished a teenage gamer from Seoul, who had just led his guild in disabling a squadron of Nalaxian drones using nothing but modified traffic signals and precisely timed Twitch streams. In orbit, the Nalaxian fleet's perfect formation began showing signs of disruption. Their ships, programmed to respond to clear military threats, found themselves bombarded with contradictory data. Social media algorithms, originally designed to capture human attention, were repurposed to feed the alien eye an endless stream of conflicting information. Check this out, Max called, bringing up a new display. A group of AI researchers in Tokyo figured out that haiku poems crash their language processing systems. Something about the juxtaposition of imagery creates paradoxes their logic can't resolve. Amanda studied the data patterns. They've never encountered communication that intentionally defies logical analysis. Their systems are designed to find meaning, not accept that sometimes there isn't any. Around the world, humanity's response took on an almost celebratory character. Grandmother's conspiracy theories on Facebook somehow interfered with Nalaxian surveillance systems. A viral dance challenge disrupted their targeting algorithms. Every piece of weird, wonderful human content became a digital weapon. We're receiving a transmission, General Richards announced, entering the command center. The Nalaxians are demanding we stop corrupting their data streams. Cooper smiled, moving a chess piece. They're not used to an opponent who doesn't play by their rules. But the aliens weren't finished. As their automated systems failed, they prepared for direct intervention. What they didn't realize was that every probe they'd lost, every drone that had crashed, had provided Earth's defenders with more data about their weaknesses. They're adapting, Martins warned, studying the tactical display, starting to isolate their critical systems from our noise. Then we'll have to get creative, Amanda replied, an idea forming. Max, what would happen if we showed their AI systems how humans interpret abstract art? Max's eyes widened with understanding. Their perfect logical minds versus humanity's ability to find patterns in chaos. Dr. Foster, you're evil. I love it. As the Nalaxian fleet prepared for their ground invasion, Humanity armed itself with its most powerful weapons: imagination, creativity, and the beautiful absurdity of human culture. The real war was about to begin, and Earth's defenders were ready to show the aliens why perfection was no match for inspiration. Dr. Amanda Foster found Grandmaster Cooper in the facility's library at 3 a.m., surrounded by ancient texts and historical manuscripts digitally projected onto the walls. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, stepping carefully around stacks of virtual books. "The answer's here somewhere," Cooper muttered, gesturing to a holographic display of Sun Tzu's Art of War. The Nalaxians aren't the first to fall into the perfection trap. History is filled with superior forces defeated by primitive opponents. Captain Martinez entered, carrying fresh coffee. "The aliens have adapted to our digital warfare. They're isolating their critical systems, preparing for physical invasion. We need something new." "Not new," Cooper corrected, eyes gleaming. "Old. Very old." He gestured to another projection showing Native American warfare tactics. "Look how the Apaches defeated technologically superior forces. They didn't just use different weapons. They fought with a different mindset." Max burst in, her blue hair disheveled. "Guys, you need to see this. Our sensors just picked up their first wave of ground troops. There," she paused, catching her breath, "they're deploying in perfect Roman legion formations." Amanda studied the tactical display. They're copying Earth's most successful military configurations, but they don't understand the contexts that made those formations effective. "Exactly," Cooper exclaimed. "They've analyzed every recorded military strategy in human history, but they're applying them like a computer would, without understanding the human elements that made them work." Martinez's eyes lit up with understanding. "So we give them something their historical analysis can't predict. Not new technology, but old wisdom used in ways they won't expect." The next 12 hours saw humanity's strangest military deployment in history. While the Nalaxians prepared for conventional resistance, Earth's defenders went analog. In the Amazon, indigenous tribes used centuries-old hunting techniques to lead alien scout parties into natural electromagnetic disruption zones. Japanese defense forces reprised ancient ninja infiltration tactics, but with modern optical camouflage. Mongolian horsemen, equipped with EMP lances, proved that cavalry could still be effective against advanced alien armor. "Their tactical computers are struggling," Max reported, monitoring the alien communications. "They keep trying to categorize our responses based on historical patterns, but we're combining strategies that their logic says should never work together." Cooper nodded approvingly. Sun Tzu meets guerrilla warfare meets modern tech. The perfect hybrid of old and new. In the Rocky Mountain Complex's command center, Amanda watched as humanity's chaotic defense unfolded. Bedouin tribes in the Sahara used ancient desert navigation techniques to lead alien dropships into massive sand traps. Finnish soldiers, drawing on their winter war experience, combined traditional Mahdi tactics with drone swarms. "Look at their formation changes," Martins pointed to the main display. "They're trying to adapt, but every time they adjust to one historical strategy, we switch to another. And the combinations are driving their systems crazy," Max added. "Their AI just can't process why someone would use Parthian horse archer tactics with stealth motorcycles." The turning point came during a battle in the Scottish Highlands. A group of local defenders, using centuries-old clan warfare strategies combined with modern sonic weapons, completely disrupted an Nalaxian advance. The aliens, expecting to face either primitive or advanced resistance, found themselves unable to cope with both simultaneously. "They're pulling back to regroup," Martins announced, studying the tactical feeds. "Their ground forces are actually retreating." Amanda noticed something in her quantum readings, not just retreating. "Look at these patterns. Their perfect formations are showing irregularities. They're starting to adapt, but not in the way they intended." Cooper smiled, moving a chess piece on his ever-present board. "By trying to counter our primitive tactics, they're being forced to think more like us, to embrace imperfection." "The ultimate irony," Amanda mused. Their quest to understand and counter our ancient wisdom is making them more human. As the Nalaxian forces withdrew to orbit, Earth's defenders prepared for the next phase. They had proven that humanity's military heritage, combined with modern innovation, could counter even the most advanced alien technology. But the true test was still to come, and humanity's most powerful weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics, but their ability to adapt and evolve. The Nalaxian ground invasion began at dawn. Their ships descended on major cities worldwide, expecting to find panic-stricken populations and organized military resistance. Instead, they found empty streets and silence. They're scanning for life signs. Max reported from her station in the Rocky Mountain complex. Their sensors are showing millions of humans just gone. Dr. Foster smiled. Not gone. Just where they'd never think to look. The aliens' first confusion came in New York. Their troops, advancing down seemingly abandoned streets, encountered a city that had transformed overnight. Every subway station had become a guerrilla workshop. Every skyscraper housed improvised defense systems. And in the sewers beneath their feet, an army of civilian engineers and makers had turned the underground into a labyrinth of innovation. Signal from the NYC Maker Space Coalition, Martins announced. The 3D printing network is operational. They're producing custom countermeasures faster than the aliens can adapt. On the main screen, they watched as the first Nalaxian patrol encountered a child's remote-controlled car. When they stopped to analyze it, every billboard in Times Square suddenly blazed to life, broadcasting frequencies that disrupted their sensor arrays. Chicago reporting in, Max called out. The Music Defense Initiative is live. Cooper looked up from his strategy console. Music defense. Someone discovered that jazz improvisation creates patterns that their targeting systems can't predict. Amanda explained. Every jazz club in the city is now a sonic warfare station. Miles Davis is officially a weapon of war. Across the globe, humanity's innovation exploded in ways the aliens couldn't have anticipated. In Tokyo, gamers used their VR rigs to pilot civilian drones, creating swarms that confused alien targeting systems. Indian tech support centers repurposed their vast networks to coordinate global resistance efforts. Silicon Valley startups pivoted overnight from app development to alien countermeasures. Report from London, Martine said, barely containing her laughter. A group of grandmothers figured out that their knitting patterns confuse alien prediction algorithms. They're mass-producing coded scarves with battlefield intelligence. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. In her quantum lab, Amanda noticed something extraordinary in the readings from a kindergarten in Kansas City. Look at this pattern, she called to her team. The children's playground games, hopscotch, tag, ring around the rosy, they're creating quantum fluctuations that interfere with the aliens' shield harmonics. Max's fingers flew across her keyboard. It's not just Kansas City. Everywhere children are playing, the alien systems are glitching. Their AI can't predict the random patterns of child's play. The Nalaxians, faced with this incomprehensible resistance, try to adapt. They deploy their most advanced combat units, only to find them defeated by the most mundane human innovations. A food truck in Los Angeles discovered its fusion reactor was the perfect frequency to disrupt alien communications. A brewery in Munich found that their fermentation process created a fog that blocked alien sensors. They're starting to retreat from urban centers, Martins reported. But look at these readings. Their troops are showing strange behavioral changes. Amanda studied the data. The perfect formations were breaking down. Individual alien soldiers were beginning to show signs of creativity. It's spreading through their ranks like a virus, Cooper observed. The more they try to understand our innovations, the more they're forced to think like us. In the command center, General Richards arrived with new intelligence. We're intercepting confused communications from their fleet. Apparently, they can't understand why humans would use social media to coordinate resistance 1 minute and share cat videos the next. That's humanity's real superpower, Amanda realized. Not our technology or our weapons, but our ability to find solutions in chaos, to innovate not despite our distractions and imperfections, but because of them. As the 5th day of invasion drew to a close, the Nalaxians faced an uncomfortable truth. They had expected to find a primitive species relying on brute force and basic technology. Instead, they found a civilization that turned everything, from jazz music to children's games, from social media to brewing beer, into tools of resistance. The perfect invasion was failing, not because humanity was stronger or more advanced, but because they were endlessly, beautifully innovative in their imperfection. The Battle of Kansas City began not with a bang, but with a playground rhyme. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Dr. Amanda Foster watched through quantum-enhanced surveillance as children in a hidden bunker played their simple games, unknowingly generating the most powerful defense Earth had yet discovered against the Nalaxian invasion. "These readings are incredible," she muttered, adjusting her instruments. "The quantum patterns generated by pure human consciousness, especially children at play. They're not just random. They're impossible." Max finished, staring at her own screens. According to the Nalaxians' logic, these patterns shouldn't exist. They violate every predictive model they have. The discovery had come accidentally. During a routine scan of survivor shelters, Amanda's team had noticed that areas with high concentrations of human emotional activity, particularly children playing, created blind spots in alien detection systems. What started as a curiosity had become their greatest breakthrough. "Incoming transmission from the Nalaxian command ship," Martinez announced. They're asking for a ceasefire." The main screen flickered to life, showing High Executor Zixis. The alien commander's usually perfect posture seemed slightly slumped, his crystalline features showing signs of stress. "We require clarification," Zixis stated, his translator struggling with the concept. "Our systems detect energy patterns that defy quantum physics as we understand it." "Explain." Amanda stepped forward. "It's not physics you're detecting, High Executor. It's consciousness, emotion, free will, things that can't be reduced to algorithms." "Impossible," Zixis responded, but his voice wavered. "All phenomena can be predicted, categorized, controlled." "Watch this," Amanda said, nodding to Max. On a secondary screen, they showed a live feed from the Kansas City bunker. Children played hopscotch while their parents told stories, sang songs, and displayed the full spectrum of human emotional behavior. The effect on the alien command ship was immediate. Their sensors, trying to analyze and categorize the patterns of human consciousness, began to overload. But something else was happening too, something unexpected. "Dr. Foster," Max called out urgently. "The Nalaxian troops on the ground. Their brainwave patterns are changing. They're beginning to generate similar quantum fluctuations to humans." Cooper looked up from his eternal chess game. "They're learning empathy, creativity. The very act of trying to understand us is changing them." The transformation spread through the Nalaxian ranks like wildfire. Soldiers exposed to human emotions began showing unprecedented behaviors. Some started humming human melodies. Others attempted to tell jokes. A few were caught trying to play hopscotch themselves. "This is beyond military victory," Amanda realized. "We're not just defeating their invasion. We're fundamentally changing their species." High Executor Zixis watched in what could only be described as horror as his perfect army began to embrace imperfection. "Stop this," he demanded. "You're corrupting our purity." "No," Amanda replied softly. "We're showing you what you lost in your quest for perfection. The power of human consciousness isn't in its predictability. It's in its potential for infinite variation." The battle reached its climax when a group of Nalaxian soldiers, exposed to a kindergarten art class, began creating their own drawings. The abstract, emotionally driven artwork they produced sent shockwaves through their civilization's collective consciousness. "Their whole society is built on perfect prediction," Martinez observed. "But you can't predict art. You can't quantify creativity." As the sun set over Kansas City, the Nalaxian forces were in full retreat, not from military defeat, but from a transformation they couldn't control. Their perfect formation had been shattered not by weapons, but by exposure to the raw power of human consciousness and emotion. "They'll be back," Cooper said, finally completing his chess game. "But not as conquerors." Amanda nodded, watching the alien ships withdraw. The quantum readings showed their once perfect patterns now rippling with new, unpredictable variations. They had come to change humanity. But instead, humanity had changed them. The human factor had proven stronger than any technology, any weapon, any perfect plan. In teaching the aliens about imperfection, humanity had achieved its greatest victory. In the depths of the Rocky Mountain complex, Dr. Amanda Foster interrogated their first Nalaxian defector. The alien sat uncomfortably in a standard office chair, its crystalline features reflecting the fluorescent lights. What caught Amanda's attention wasn't its alien physiology, but the crude crayon drawing clutched in its four-fingered hand. "I made this," the Nalaxian said, its translator struggling to convey emotion. "It serves no purpose. It follows no pattern." And yet, it held up the drawing, a chaotic splash of colors that somehow formed a sunset. "It makes me feel." Max, monitoring the interview from her station, whispered to Martinez, "Did it just say feel? I thought their species engineered out emotions centuries ago." "They tried," Amanda responded, studying her quantum readings. "But you can't completely remove something that's fundamental to consciousness. You can only suppress it." She turned back to their guest. "Do you have a name?" The alien hesitated. "Designation XJ2847. "Would you like a name?" Amanda asked gently. "Something you choose yourself." The concept of personal choice visibly rattled the Nalaxian. Yet after a moment, it spoke. "Vincent. After the human artist whose works triggered my malfunction." Across the globe, similar malfunctions were spreading through the Nalaxian forces like a cognitive virus. Their perfect society, built on predictability and logic, was experiencing its first cultural revolution in 10,000 years. "Report from Paris," Martins announced. A group of Nalaxian scouts spent 3 hours at the Louvre. They're now attempting to compose poetry. Tokyo base reporting their detained Nalaxians are requesting cooking lessons. Max added, double-checking her screen. "They say they want to understand why humans combine flavors that shouldn't logically go together." Cooper, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "It's not just art and culture. Look at their tactical patterns." The main display showed Nalaxian ships breaking their perfect formations, experimenting with new configurations. Some crews had begun decorating their vessels with distinctly human-inspired designs. "Their high command is in chaos," General Richards reported, entering with fresh intelligence. "Nearly 30% of their forces are showing signs of contamination. They're calling it the human virus." Amanda's quantum readings confirmed it. The once perfect patterns of Nalaxian consciousness were evolving, becoming more complex, more chaotic, more human. Vincent, still clutching its drawing, explained, "Our society achieved perfect order by eliminating variables. But in doing so, we lost something essential. Watching human children play, seeing your art, tasting your food, it awakened something we thought we'd destroyed." The transformation accelerated. Nalaxian soldiers began requesting access to human music, literature, and games. Some started experimenting with humor, though their first attempts at jokes were decidedly alien. Why did the quantum particle cross the dimensional barrier? Because it exhibited wave-particle duality. Is this humor? I feel uncertain. But not all Nalaxians embraced the change. The High Command, led by the increasingly desperate Sixus, attempted to quarantine the infected troops. It only made things worse. They're fighting their own nature, Amanda realized, watching the quantum patterns shift. Their species evolved with creativity and emotion, just like us. They just buried it under layers of artificial perfection. Max's screens lit up with new data. Dr. Foster, look at this. The Nalaxian ships in orbit. Their crews are sharing human music with each other. They're having dance parties. Not just dance parties, Martine's corrected, studying the tactical display. Those movement patterns, they're learning to improvise. Their entire battle doctrine was based on perfect coordination. Now they're learning to jazz. The cultural contamination reached its peak when a group of Nalaxian scientists, after watching a marathon of Earth cooking shows, attempted to open the first alien fusion restaurant. Their logical approach to combining random ingredients produced results that were either inedible or revolutionary. There was no middle ground. Vincent, now teaching art classes to other defectors, summed it up best. We came to change your world, but you changed ours instead. Perfection, we learned, is the enemy of growth. In your beautiful chaos, we found our lost soul. The invasion had become a revolution, and the Nalaxian Empire would never be the same. Sunrise over the Rocky Mountains painted the sky in impossible colors. Fitting, Dr. Amanda Foster thought, for what would become humanity's most improbable victory. The Nalaxian flagship hung in low orbit, its once perfect crystalline structure now adorned with swirling patterns that would have been considered heretical in their society just weeks ago. High Executor Zixis had requested a face-to-face meeting, not to discuss surrender terms, but something far more revolutionary. They want to learn from us, Amanda announced to her team, reading the transmission. Not our technology or our weapons, but our chaos. Talk about a plot twist, Max quipped, her blue hair now sporting alien-inspired crystalline clips, a gift from Vincent's art class. They came to conquer us, and ended up conquering their own programming instead. The meeting was set in a place that perfectly symbolized the merger of order and chaos, a children's science museum. Zixis arrived with an honor guard that couldn't quite maintain their perfect formation. One of them was quietly humming Sweet Caroline. Dr. Foster, Zixis began, his crystalline features showing newly developed micro-expressions. We have spent 10,000 years perfecting our society, eliminating variables, achieving absolute predictability. And in 3 weeks, your species has. He paused, searching for the right word. Beautiful chose everything. Amanda couldn't help but smile at the neologism. You can't perfect consciousness without killing it. The very things you try to engineer out, creativity, emotion, spontaneity, they're not bugs in the system. They're features. Around them, the museum buzzed with activity. Nalaxian scientists worked alongside human children at interactive exhibits, their logical minds delighting in the unpredictable results of simple experiments. A group of alien artists had set up an installation combining their crystalline technology with Jackson Pollock-inspired splatter patterns. Our quantum computers have analyzed every aspect of human civilization, Zixis continued. We still cannot predict what you will do next. It is refreshing. Martinez, watching from a security station, noticed something remarkable. The Nalaxian neural patterns, they're starting to naturally generate the same quantum fluctuations we see in human consciousness. Evolution in action, Cooper observed, setting up his chessboard one last time. They're remembering who they were before they tried to become perfect. The formal peace treaty that followed was unlike any in human or Nalaxian history. Instead of territories or resources, it dealt with cultural exchange. Earth was recognized not as a conquered world or even an equal partner, but as something entirely new, a protected source of creative chaos. We established this accord, the treaty read, acknowledging that the greatest strength of any species lies not in its perfection, but in its potential for variation. Vincent, now serving as cultural attaché, had added an unprecedented clause. Mandatory art classes for all Nalaxian diplomatic staff. The changes rippled through both civilizations. Human innovation, freed from the threat of invasion, exploded in new directions. Nalaxian technology, infused with creative unpredictability, achieved breakthroughs their logical approach had never considered. Look at these readings, Amanda showed her team. The quantum patterns of both species were beginning to harmonize, creating something entirely new. We're not just coexisting, we're co-evolving. Maxt, typically skeptical, found herself moved by the data. So their fatal error wasn't just underestimating Earth. It was underestimating the power of imperfection itself. The perfect error, Cooper added, finally completing his chess game. Against an Alaxian opponent who had learned to play not by calculating moves, but by feeling them. As the sun set on humanity's strangest victory, Dr. Amanda Foster added one final entry to her quantum analysis logs. The Nalaxian invasion ended not with surrender, but with transformation. They came seeking to perfect us, but instead rediscovered their own capacity for beautiful imperfection. In their error, we found our strength. In our chaos, they found their freedom. And in the space between order and randomness, both our species found something greater than victory. We found evolution. The universe, vast and mysterious, had learned a crucial lesson. In the dance between chaos and order, the most beautiful patterns emerge not from perfection, but from the courage to embrace uncertainty. And somewhere in orbit, an Alaxian battle cruiser was playing jazz.